These animals went extinct because of humans. Dodo. On the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean, these flightless, ground-nesting birds were once bountiful. The dodos weighed about 23 kilograms, about 50 pounds, and were bigger than turkeys and had a blue-grey plumage and a large head. With no natural enemies, the Portuguese sailors who found them about 1507 were unfazed by the birds. With no natural enemies, the Portuguese sailors who found them about 1507 were unfazed by the birds. As the mammals feasted on their helpless nests, the later arrival of monkeys, goats, and rats to the island proved devastating for the languishing birds. The last dodo was slain in 1681. Unfortunately, there are very few scientific descriptions or museum specimens. Steller sea cow. Steller's sea cows, discovered by the German naturalist Georg W. Steller in 1741, once populated the nearshore areas of the Commander Islands in the Bering Sea. Steller's sea cows, much bigger than modern manatees and dugongs, reached a length of over 30 feet and weighed about 10 metric tons. At the surface of the coastal seas, these huge, docile creatures drifted, but sadly had no potential to submerge. This made them easy targets for the harpoons of Russian seal hunters who, on long sea journeys, coveted them as a source of meat. Ling was also inefficient, and by 1768, less than 30 years after it was first discovered, the genus was exterminated. Passenger pigeon. The passenger pigeon was once renowned for its large migratory flocks that would darken the skies for days, and was hunted to extinction in the early 1900s. Billions of these gregarious birds once populated eastern North America and appeared similar to the mourning dove in appearance. As American colonists pushed westward, passenger pigeons were annually slaughtered by 1 million for their meat and transported for sale in city markets by railway carloads. In one single breeding season, hunters often invaded their spawning grounds and annihilated whole colonies. The extinction of the population became precipitous from 1870 onwards, and several failed efforts were made to breed the captive birds. The last known passenger pigeon, named Martha D. Ed on September 1, 1914, in the Cincinnati Zoo in Ohio. Eurasian aurochs. The Eurasian aurochs were one of the ancestors of modern cattle, a huge, wild ox that once ranged across the steppes of Europe, Siberia, and Central Asia. Eurasian aurochs were renowned for their violent temperaments and competed for sport in ancient Roman arenas, standing 6 feet high on the shoulder with substantial, forward-curving horns. Eurasian aurochs were hunted excessively as a game animal and eventually became locally extinct across their range in many countries. By the 13th century, people had decreased so much that in Eastern Europe the right to hunt them was reserved to nobles and royal households. In 1564, in a royal census, gamekeepers reported only 38 animals, and the last known Eurasian aurochs, a female, D. Ed from natural causes in Poland in 1627. Great auk. A flightless seabird that bred in colonies on rocky islands in the North Atlantic, including St. Kilda, the Faroe Islands, Iceland, and off Newfoundland, Funk Island, was the great auk. The birds were about 75 centimeters, 30 inches, long and had small wings which were used for swimming underwater. Totally defenseless, great auks were killed for food and bait by rapacious hunters, especially during the early 1800s. Seafarers have caught enormous numbers, frequently driving the birds up the planks and slaughtering them on their way into a vessel's hold. In June 1844, the last known fossils were destroyed on Eldey Island, Iceland, for a series of museums. Woolly mammoth. The woolly mammoth is the best known of all mammoth species, due to a collection of well-preserved, frozen carcasses in Siberia. Around 7,500 years ago, after the end of the last ice age, these huge creatures died out. Although climate change undoubtedly played an important role in their decline, recent reports indicate that humans may have been a driving factor, or at least the ultimate cause, of their demise as well. A deadly mix is intensive hunting and the pressures of a warming climate, and it appears that the mighty mammoth could not survive the human appetite in a changing environment.